Good morning, participants joining in person and visually from Cambodia. Good afternoon, good evening to participants joining from the different part of the world. Thank you for being here with us today. As always, please note that this workshop is being recorded and the recording video will be made available on our website, social media platform, and YouTube channel for later viewing. My name is 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐮𝐭 and I serve as Program Manager at the Center for Khmer Study. For those who may be joining us for the first time, CKS is a non-governmental and non-profit organization and a proud member of the Council of American Overseas Research Center, or we can call KOC. Our mission is to strengthen research and research capacity in the social science humanity in Cambodia and across the Mekong region. Our headquarters is based in Siem Reap, where our library is open for the public, and we also maintain an office in Phnom Penh. This 3-hour workshop aims to offer participants practical insight into the design and application of method research. It will begin with an overview of the key principles and procedure for integrating quantitative and qualitative approach into a research project based on the rationale that the integration of the two methodologies can enhance the depth and credibility of the research finding. Drawing on the real example and lesson learned from the speaker experience, the session will present effective strategy for collecting and analyzing quantitative empirical data along with qualitative observational data. Participants will gain a clearer understanding of how to design research questions, collect data, and conduct data analysis. The workshop encourages interactive discussion, experience sharing, and reflection, providing participants with practical ideas and inspiration to apply method research in their work. And today we are honored to have this workshop led by Ms. Supiep Tang, the Deputy Director of the Transcultural Psychosocial Organization Cambodia, or we also known as TPO Cambodia. She holds a Master in Clinical Psychology from the Royal University of Phnom Penh and has worked with TPO for the last 17 years, where she monitors and evaluates mental health program and supervise research projects. She will give you further introduction about herself, so I will not spoil it. And this workshop is supported by the Australian government through the Asia Foundation Blockchain Access to Data and Dialogue for Development in Cambodia program, and co-organized by the Resource Center of the Extraordinary Chamber in the Court of Cambodia. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to hand the floor to Ms. Supiep Tang. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, especially those in this venue, and also good morning from all participants around the world and who join with us online. And again, I'm pleased to introduce myself. My name is Supiep Tang. 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐮𝐭 already mentioned about my position at TPO, so I'm the Deputy Director for TPO Cambodia. So I'm not quite sure how many of you have heard about TPO Cambodia. So a very brief introduction about TPO Cambodia, because it's also my background from psychologist. So TPO Cambodia is an NGO, the local NGO that has been established in 1995 as the international organization. By 2000, we are localized as a local NGO. So the main mission for TPO Cambodia, we provide the mental health service to Cambodian people, especially who live in a very remote area. The main component for TPO Cambodia, we run the community mental health program. So just to remember, we're the first who run the community mental health program in Cambodia. And TPO Cambodia, we have our outpatient clinic that we provide treatment, counseling to general population. And especially we work with a very particular target group in the rural that we set as a target province. So that a very brief background of TPO Cambodia. And this morning is my great honor, again, to share about my experience. I'm not the teacher, I'm not the professor, but I'm the practitioner. So I'm standing here to share you all about my own experience in leading the research within TPO Cambodia. And my background in working with TPO is 17 years. So the first year that I worked for TPO is the research assistant. So the first year that I worked for TPO is the research assistant. So I hold this position. I hold this experience up to now. Although now I'm the deputy director, that my main task is also doing the like proposal development, but still I'm involved in the research. So I'm sure that everyone who joined in this room and also through Zoom have a very particular objective or very specific purpose to join in this workshop. And we have a very clear content, but I'm sure that beyond the content that we present here, you will also have further questions that you would like to explore, that beyond the scope, beyond the what we propose in the presentation. Just let us know or write down your question. We will have like 20-minute question and answer. Or if we cannot answer all your questions, you can send me an email, or we can facilitate or send you the link that relevant to the topic or the question that you asked. So today, again, is welcome to this workshop. The workshop is about the designing, applying the method research. Can I know the person in the room? How many of you experience in doing the research? So thank you, and I will keep in mind for those who experience in lead the research project. So we may also face the same challenge, or maybe be able to share about the challenge in the session. Because I'm working here in the Cambodian context, maybe other work in the research in the other country. So we can share across the experience that we went through, the challenge that we work for, particular method that we deploy for the research project. So here's the key content, and I hope it will somehow answer your expectation, but you don't have to tell me now about your expectation. We will have a session that everyone can share very brief expectation. So the content here, the key content here, just to let all of us here in the room and also who join from the online to understand what is quantitative. What is the key principle of the quantitative research? And also to highlight the importance about the qualitative research. And most of the time we just does not want to go with the qualitative. It's very, very tough or very challenging ones. So we will give you a kinds of tip and also the key principle for you to consider what type of the research method you would like to use for your own research project or for your organization or your personal interest if you want to do the research project. After we define the definition, the key principle of using the quantitative and qualitative research, we will also show about the differentiate between the quantitative and the qualitative research. So what are the difference? We will show a very brief about the difference between these two methodology, the research methodologies. After that, when you understand about the definition, about the key, the differentiate, then we will go together about what is the mixed method research. What type of the mixed method research that we are using in Cambodian context, or what are very common one. And I also share you about my own experience in leading the research almost 17 years in different research topics, but just to ensure that most of the research topic is related to the mental health. And here is a place that I would like also to pay my respect because I work for TPO Cambodia with the Khmer survivor in the context of the Khmer Tribunal. So here today, I'm standing here to present about my own experience working with the Khmer survivor in the context of the in the context of the 𝐸CCC. So I'm hearing about the expectation from I think half of the participants in the class and also those who online. So some of you may expect to learn about the mixed method and also a very particular expectation from our participant is also learning about the local context, the real challenge, the practical challenge, and also how to mitigate it. So it's also been addressed in this slide presentation because I think country to country is different. The language, the way that we design the questionnaire is different. The terminology, the scale is completely different. So I will also share from my own experience in doing the research in Cambodia, especially in the context working with the Khmer survivor. So here, the title is about the principle of the quantitative. So when talking about the quantitative, we always talking about the number, about the percentage. The terminology called the numerical data. So what is the definition of the quantitative? So the quantitative research is to measure, to test the relationship using the numerical data, seeking objective, to generalize the result through the survey, through the research. So what does it mean? Because it's, I think, just give you the example or just give you the whole definition, everyone could access it. But how to define what does it mean to measure? What does it mean to generalize the result? To test the relationship. So I just break into the two components, the red one and the orange one. It's like the term, the key term for quantitative, like to measure, to test the relationship using the numerical data. So giving you an example of the measurement, like the measure. So one of our research to see the number of the Khmer survivor, the number of the Khmer survivor experienced from forced marriage, from sexual abuse during the Khmer's time. So most of the survey that we do with the quantitative, we want to highlight about the percentage. How many percentage of the Khmer survivor who participate in the 𝐸CCC? How many percentage or the number of the Khmer survivor who experience of forced marriage or sexual abuse or has been tortured during the Khmer's time? So this all the type of the number we want to see, we want to know about the survey about the research that we has been proposed. This one of the measure that we include in the quantitative research. The other, the definition is to test the relationship. I think for those who've been using SPSS, is familiar with the term correlation, to test the relationship. So to test the relationship, I just give a very example, the practical example, and it's also included in our research project. We want to see the test the relationship like Khmer survivor who have severe mental health problem experience with many traumatic event or experience with traumatic like a traumatic event that they went through the Khmer's time. So what does it mean? So if the Khmer survivor who face many experience during the Khmer's time, for example, forced by torture, like torture, forced marriage, sexual abuse, lack of food, lack of shelter. So the number of traumatic events that they face, the higher the severity of their mental health. That include, like, for example, the PTSD, the depression or anxiety. So we want to see about the test relationship. So if it's just like the higher number, the higher the severity is all up. It's about the positive relationship or positive correlation. That's just the definition of the quantitative research. We want to test the relationship. We want to test the correlation, or we want to test the hypothesis that we put as the, most of us using the hypothesis as the title of the research project. But it could also the objective for us to test the relationship. And that is the challenge for us, how to develop, how to define the hypothesis for the research project. Yes. The third point, like the key point that I put in yellow, seeking objective, generalize the result from the survey. So in the context of the Khmer tribunal, the Khmer survivor who submit complaint form are still party. So we want to see how many of the still party, how many of still party satisfy with the result of tribunal. So around 4,000 of still party. If we select, if we interview with all, that could also the general result from the survey to see how many still party who participate in the ECCC have satisfied with the process. So quantitative can help us to generalize the result from the survey, can help us to measure, can help us to test, to show the relationship among two variables, like the test like A and B, or A, B, and C. So this is the definition of the quantitative. So why we are using quantitative research? Because everyone here want to like to have their own research, to have like a research project, but we don't know what type of research we should use. So this is the criteria, the key principle that we need to consider. It's not far from the definition, but if you want to see, like to focus on the objective measure and statistical analysis, if we want to measure and have statistical analysis, go for the quantitative research. That one of the key principle, the criteria. Secondly, if we want to test for the hypothesis, as I mentioned earlier, test about the relationship, then it's also fit with the quantitative research. Thirdly, if we have a large sample, a lot of like many respondents for our research project, the large sample, then it's also fit with the quantitative research. Four is about the structured data collection. So typically we asking, when we use this term, is about the questionnaire design. So questionnaire, like the close-ended interview. So if we design yes and no and rating scale, all type of the close-ended question, then it's kinds of the structure for data collection using in the quantitative research. Third one is focus on how much, to what extent, how often. This type of the measure about to what extent, how frequent, how much. So if we want to answer this, so also suggest to go with the quantitative research. So the type of the quantitative research could be the survey, the research, the correlation research to test, the causal comparison research, and the experimental research. So experimental research is also part of 1 hour experience that we conduct the randomized control trial to see the group different among the control group and experiment group, to see if we giving one of the intervention to the experiment group, what has been the benefit of those groups. So that's kinds of the experimental research. So this four is a type of the quantitative research, but in Cambodia, like in our context, usually we call the survey. We use the survey. We use the survey research. We use, I think, not many institutions in Cambodia run the randomized control trial. So RCT. So TPO Cambodia, we run the RCT. So we used to do the survey research and also experimental research. But I think also in the same research, we do the comparison. We do the comparison among the group, among the time 1, time 2, or time 3. If we give the intervention from time 1, what has been improved? If we give the intervention in time 2, what has been improved? So to see the improvement from time to time to compare the group. So this is a very key principle to give you an idea, a tip before planning your research project. What do you really want to see or want to test? How many sample size? Whether you want to test or whether you have a big sample size or small sample size, whether you want to see how much, how often, to what extent, that is also list down all your question. Then we can already have an idea whether we go through the quantitative research or the qualitative research. So please list down the tip. Usually when I do the research, first is come up from the objective, what I really want to see. The hypothesis is coming first. What are the resources? What time that we have, like the timeline? And also the sample size. And who are the target benefits, like the respondent? For us to see all this, to list all these things. So then it can give us a kind of a picture, like the direction, what we really want to go for the research, whether it's focused on the quantitative or whether it's focused on the qualitative research. So here is the questionnaire. So usually when we do a quantitative survey from TPO, we here just a part of the quantitative survey. As the way that we design with the mental health assessment, usually that it have a rating scale from 0 to 4, from 1 to 5. So the rating scale is also show about how much, to what extent does it disturb your daily life? How often you have this type of symptom? To what extent this symptom has bothered your life? So this type of the Likert scale, we call from, for example, to call the Likert scale from 0 to 4, or whether it's from 1 to 4, 1 to 5. So it's all about the rating scale. The Likert scale is the rating scale. So in TPO, when we design the questionnaire, we're thinking about first the objective of our research project, about our target beneficiary, or the respondent, whom are we going to interview, how many sample size, the resource that we have, and to think again and again about the question, because some of the challenge that we always face, we collect a lot of data, but we don't use those data. So please plan ahead about the key objective that you want to see for the research objective, for the research project. Otherwise, we collect just all the information, but we don't use all those information. Yeah. And this type is about the this question, the quantitative survey using the N closed interview, so yes and no and rating scale, not just open for the quantitative survey. Is not asking about the quantitative, like open or ask them to narrate or describe, but just like the closed structure, yes and no and rating scale. Of course, every type of the research project have pro and con, benefit and like advantage and disadvantage of using the research method, especially we here talking about the quantitative research. Quantitative research allow us to have a large sample, thousands of interview, hundreds of interview. So large sample to generalize the survey, the results of the survey. And it's very easy for us to communicate. through the percentage, through the number, show about the improvement. So the way for us, like the advantage of using the quantitative research is about easy for us to communicate in, like to share in the report, to talk to other about the percentage, about the number. So it's improved for the, it's easy for the communication about the results of the quantitative research. But still, again, it's go to the point that the context is different. So some of the study, we use the Western scale, the Western, like the scale from the Western country. For example, years ago, we used post-traumatic stress disorder. Some of the item does not capture or not applicable in our Cambodian context. So it is not a culturally sensitive, or the context is different. And the scale using like testing from the people who live in the like other country, not Cambodian people. So the validity is completely different. So it's also a disadvantage of using the scale or using the quantitative, especially using the scale from the Western country. And other disadvantage is about the cost. The larger sample size you want to have in the research, the resource you are going to invest, the big money that you are going to invest. For example, if we want to interview 100 with 20K, or maybe if we want to interview 300 with 60K, after that we need the human resource to code, to entry, to clean, to write the report. So it's take time and also time for the interview. And also it's not easy in Cambodian context to interview. If we plan in the protocol like 45 minutes, but in practical, like in reality, when we interview, it's longer than 45 minutes, could be 90 minutes. Especially if we work or we interviewed with the commercial survivor who've been like a very severe traumatized and also kinds of a hearing impairment, and they cannot read and write. In other countries, just kinds of self-administer, give the questionnaire for the respondent, they fill it. But in our context, especially when we're working with the commercial survivor, one-on-one interview, we have to talk, we have to repeat it, the question for several times. And if we explain, they will go to another topic. So that is the challenge. And the disadvantage is about the resource, about the cost. So I will also share more about the practical challenge in the next slide. So this just like example of the results of the quantitative research. I just give an example, but for those who are already familiar, so the results of the quantitative research again is about the measure, the numerical data. So it's about the percentage, it's about the number. So this is just a very example, and it's go to the objective or numerical, and the sample is 108 that we interview with the SIL party to see about the psychological impact as a result of their participation in the Khmer Rouge Tribunal, to see whether they have a positive impact on themselves, or whether they reported with a negative impact on themselves as participate in the Khmer Rouge Tribunal or the ECCC. So we want to see about the positive and the negative impact toward the SIL party who joined in the Khmer Rouge Tribunal. This is a question that we put as a light skirt rating scale. So here I close the chapter of the quantitative. So now move to the session of the qualitative, and that is a very difficult for me. I'm sharing from my own experience. It's the most difficult part for doing the research using the qualitative research. So the qualitative research emphasizes subject in-depth understanding of the concept. We try to learn about the in-depth understanding about the concept, about the perception and experience using non-numerical data. So most of us hear about transcription. So when we do the qualitative, we using the record, we have a very long note. So the data is non-numerical data, always the string, the wording. So it's really challenge for us to go through with the qualitative research. And why we do the qualitative research? Why we do the qualitative research, or why we decide to take the qualitative research? So we want to learn about kinds of a human behavior, the perspective, their points of view, the insights, the experience, to let the respondent describe about their own experience. So it's allow us to learn about the experience, the human behavior, the perception, the insights. So this is also help us to collect the non-numerical data. This is a part of the qualitative research. Doing the positive research is also helping us to build the theory. Usually we use the theory to run for the quantitative, but it's also another way around that we use the qualitative to build the theory based on the experience, that we interview, based on the perception. So it's another point for us to consider about using the qualitative research. Doing the qualitative research with a very small sample size. Quantitative is about the large sample size, a big sample size. But the qualitative, very small, can be 10, can be 20, 30. That's give us a kind of the information, non-numerical data from those who we interview. And the data collection is flexible. It could be in focus group. It could be in key informant interview, like one-on-one, but we call the key informant interview. The focus group discussion, about 5 to 10 to join in the group discussion, or we call FGD. The acronym that we used to hear is FGD, focus group discussion. The observation, that is also a part of the qualitative research. The case study, to collect the case study. That secondary study, the case study, that is also a type of the source for us to do the qualitative research. So doing the qualitative is give us a bigger picture to understand why and how. Why it happen? Why they don't satisfy with the process of the tomorrow tribunal? We already have the quantitative, like percentage is very low, for example. We need to understand why it's very low. Then we have to ask to the experience of the commercial survivor or the civil party, why you're not satisfied with this? Please describe. So we allow them to describe because we want to hear, we want to see why, or why they satisfy. So doing the qualitative research is also the way to answer why and how. So I think this is the key, very key for the qualitative research, but it's more than that. I will also give a very practical example in building the theory, research, the qualitative research. But here the key principle and giving the example when we do the qualitative research. So remember, the qualitative research is about open-ended interview. Open, so open for the respondent to share, to narrate, to describe about their experience, about their view, to open for them to share for us. So for qualitative, we use open-ended question. So example, can you tell me what would be the impact on you as the result of your participation in the process of the tribunal? So we give the floor to the respondent to narrate, to describe about their experience in participation in the process of the tribunal. What has been impact on themselves or impact on their family or the community. Secondly, like the second example, like, would you kindly describe about the positive impact on your emotional? The rating scale, like previous slide in quantitative, they said, okay, it's positive impact. So we want to hear, like, to have a support, to verify, to understand why they reported with positive impact. So if we want to understand why they reported with positive impact on their participation with the Khmer tribunal or with the process of the tribunal, we ask this question: would you kindly describe about your own experience that you have, like, about the positive impact on your emotional? So let them describe. So this can help us to understand, okay, they have this report with 80% of positive impact. Why? So we can hear having this information, to collecting this information from the open-ended question. That's kind of a support document. Sometimes we can using the code to support to collect all the coding from the qualitative, but we also can use the code to support the finding. The third example, what are the distress? I think all of us hear about the armed conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. So this is like giving one example about open-ended question. So what are the distress that you can describe as the results of hearing or witness? Because we don't go to the battlefield, like we just hearing from the news, we just like follow, we witness. So we witness all this type of the armed conflict. So what are the distress that you could describe as a result of witnessing? So this type of information is about the open-ended question that we can use for the qualitative research. So the context is different from country to country, especially with the mental health. So globally, they have the use for the ICD and the DSM-5. Before it's this DSM-4 and now it's DSM-5. One of the diagnoses that does not have or include in the ICD-10 or not include in the DSM-5 is about Batsbat. But here in these two books, ICD-10 and DSM-5, it have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. But there's no Batsbat. Batsbat is a local term. And why we're interested in doing the local term? That is local of expression, the local concept, the idiom of distress that our Cambodian people express as the distress that we have in our own context. So some people, they call the idiom of distress, the local concept. So they study the Batsbat, we call the Batsbat the Cambodian version, developed by TPO Executive Director, his name Dr. Sathirachim. He have his PhD from Monash University. And this project worked together with TPO, so I supporting him in doing the qualitative to run for this study. So Batsbat, what does it mean in Batsbat? I think most of us in Cambodia, we understand about the word Batsbat, but I think more than just one word. There's a lot of items under the Batsbat. So Batsbat is the dominant of Because PTSD, again, post-traumatic stress disorder does not capture the symptom of Cambodian people. So we see there's should one of the Cambodian version. So we developed the Batsbat. So Batsbat is the definition of Batsbat, like Bat is break, and Sbat is form or body. So that's based on the definition of Samdech Junat. So many years ago, it's also insist in Cambodian dictionary by Samdech Junat. So Batsbat is like break the form. So meaning that psychological breakdown of courage. Meaning that Batsbat, when people reported they have Batsbat, to be afraid forever. They pretend to be mute. So I think under the Khmer Rouge time, people have Batsbat, they pretend to be like mute or blind or kinds of, they said that they have a hearing impairment, pretend not to hear anything. So this is also a form of the Batsbat, like afraid forever. Or they don't even have the initiative to do things. Or never dare to do something again. That is also one of the items that include in Batsbat. So to have this Cambodian version is not easy. The definition is easy, but the process of doing this is complicated. But it's very helpful to have our own Cambodian version of Batsbat. Not replace of the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder using in another country, but us using the Batsbat. Yes. So the process of doing this research. So why explain? Because it's a part of the mixed method. But starting from just one project, we start with the research like qualitative and the quantitative. And there's also this type of kinds of method. But first we need to do the qualitative. And the mixed method, the next slide is also present about the type of the mixed method. So I just highlight here is about exploratory subsequential, the type of the process that we using the mixed method called exploratory. So first we do the qualitative research. So the qualitative research for the Batsbat study, we interview with local experts. Using open-ended question, not many questions, just few, as you can see here. We ask the local expert about what is Batsbat from their perception. We ask monk, what is Batsbat mean for them? Or let monk describe. If you see someone with Batsbat, what is the symptom that you see or they may present? So asking them to describe about the Batsbat. We ask the survivor, I think many people involved in, not many, but 53 involved in this qualitative research. So it's also asking the linguistic historian and also her staff, the survivor, monk, traditional healer, medium. Because I think many years ago, Cambodian people respect the traditional healer. So traditional healer may capture the symptom of Batsbat, so they can understand, they can describe or narrate what is Batsbat. They can see if someone present with Batsbat. So they can tell us about the Batsbat. So I think the first question, what is Batsbat? The second is about, please tell me about a person you know who have Batsbat. That could include the symptom, like emotional, the behaviors of those who have Batsbat, how they behave, the relationship, their daily functioning of those who have passed by. So this the key component that we try to like extract from doing the qualitative interview by asking to define the definition of passback and also to identify the symptom, the behavior, the type of the relationship, the daily function of those who have the passback. So why we do this? So why we do this is, again, we have the real like planning ahead about the purpose of the study. I already explained to get understanding of the local concept, the local expression, the idiom of distress, how we express our distress when someone have passback. And passback is a type of trauma response. So because they went through the commerce time, the traumatic event, forced marriage, sexual torture. So that's type of the results of the went through the trauma event. People reported they have passback. So please describe about the passback, the symptom that you have, the emotional distress that you have as a result of the trauma response. After we do the interview with the expert, with 53, we generate like recording from the interview with 53 to identify, to cluster into the emotional, we cluster under the behavior, we cluster into the relationship and daily function. We put the item that we collect, the sign that described by the expert, the 53 expert. The total coding, we have 53 items. From the qualitative, we have 53 items that present about the symptoms of passback. But it's not the end of the study. It's just a part of the qualitative research that we interview with the expert. We do another round. We do another round by using the 53. But we interview, we using the quantitative research. After we get the semantic, the coding from the expert, we listing down, we do the checklist. We do the checklist and we test those checklists with the general population, but they went through the commerce time. So we do the quantitative research. So first, to mention again, first we do the qualitative to develop the checklist, to develop the 53 items. By using this checklist, we integrate into the quantitative research. Interview with 196 respondents, the big sample size, to find the validity, whether the description, whether the item, whether the symptom that shared by the expert also apply with other survivor. So we want to test the validity, whether it's like applicable with other survivor. So we ask, when we do the quantitative research, we also checking with the respondent whether they experience of passback. So if they said yes, we go through with the checklist. So we're using all the 53 items to ask with those who reported they have a passback as the results of went through the commerce time. So this is a process, a very long process. So the first is about the qualitative, and then we do the quantitative. It's still within the one project. Remember, within the one project, we use first the qualitative and then we use the quantitative. It's called mixed method, but the type of exploratory sequential under one project. Oh, I know it's very tough and it takes time for us to do this research. And today we just like have 3 hours to walk you through the whole process of develop one one of the Cambodian version called BASBAT. So I think it's not fair, but just like to let you know about the type of the mixed method and also our own experience of doing this research. So the qualitative research, as I mentioned earlier, the type of the qualitative research method could be one-on-one interview, could be a focus group discussion, the ethnographic interview, the case study research, record keeping, and the qualitative observation. That is the type of the qualitative. And here the picture I just show you about the conceptual framework that we developed from BASBAT. So we're using the mixed method that called exploratory sequential, that first we do the qualitative. Through the results of the qualitative, we put it into the quantitative research within one project. So we do the quantitative for 2 times with 196 samples. And the last one to confirm, we do with the big sample like 390 samples. Not just one, but two rounds of the quantitative research to test about the checklist that we collected from the expert. So here is the process. And with the process of doing this, we also do the we do the kinds of the correlation. Also, we want to see some of the items from the BASBAT, whether it have the correlation with the other post-traumatic stress disorder, or whether it have kinds of associate or correlation with depression, anxiety. So we do all of this to see also the correlation. And we tried with the big sample, we find the validity that we run exploratory factor analysis to generate from 32, and then we group into 3 categories. So we need to using other software to run for exploratory factor analysis that we use like under the SPSS, but we also have other software to run for the factor analysis. And to run for this type of the data, like they want to see the internal consistency. It's a high internal consistency, a high reliability, whether it's kinds of applicable, when we can use a very simple word, whether this item is captured in Cambodian context, whether it's reliable item or not, or whether we can use this item or not, and the correlation. And as the result, we also do the publication from this study. Yeah. Here's also another example of the qualitative survey that I already mentioned the question, but it's also we put in the research that TPO worked last year about the impact of the Khmer survivor who participate in the 𝐸CCC. So it's kinds of mixed method that we use quantitative and qualitative. And this part is about the research question that we use design for the qualitative research. So it's type of the open-ended again, to give the space for them to describe, to narrate, to explain. So remember the key point doing the qualitative research is to answer why and how. This information is very important for us to confirm. It's also to confirm, to support the finding from the measure under the quantitative survey. So this is part of the survey that we experienced, and I can tell you all that a very common mixed method that TPO use, the combination qualitative and quantitative in the same time. Not just like the qualitative first and then quantitative. But this we just go all together, just like one interview, and then we integrate like quantitative and qualitative as a mixed method. So here I think we come to the example of the qualitative survey. Again, there's also pro and con in running the qualitative research. So the pro or the advance of running the qualitative research is more flexing space for us to create or interpret the result. Because a lot of description, just one open-ended question, but it give us a lot of rich text, rich information. And it can help us just like not just group into one theme, two theme, but maybe different theme. And the other advantage of using the qualitative, it's mentioned that greater freedom to utilize different research techniques as study involved. So the different research technique that could also we can do with a small sample size, focus group discussion, or whether we want to go with the key informant interview. Or if we don't have the resource, maybe we go for the case study, the kinds of the day's review, the case study or observation that is also could integrate as the data for the qualitative study. Of course, we have the advantage and disadvantage. The disadvantage, I can tell you, not just only in this slide, but from our own experience, is so complicated in terms of data analysis, in terms of coding, to get different perspective. So doing the research, like doing the group coding, maybe I'm not the one who coding, but maybe a group to see about how they code the same, like the same response. So that is a challenge. Maybe I call, for example, if I call the term of reparation, but maybe the other call in term of justice. Then it's just like a kinds of this discussion why it's come to the reparation definition for you, but why it's come to the term of justice for you when you're coding this statement. So I think a lot of challenge in discussion to find a common theme. It's not easy. It's not easy to code. It takes time when we do, especially when we do the transcript, the record. We have the most of the time when we do the qualitative, we have the using we ask permission from the respondent for the record. So the transcription is a lot of text, that we have to go through one by one and give the coding or segment for the data that we receive. This really take time. The question just like shoe, maybe 5, but the coding time is more than that. It's really a lot, and some of the information we have to remove because that's not relevant. So I think this is one of the challenge in running the qualitative data analysis. And the sample size is small. Non-random is about snowball or purposive. Or maybe I ask someone, do you know someone have bad? She said yes. So I will go to the one who recommend like kinds of snowball. Convenient sampling. It's not a random select. So the sample is very small, but non-random select by using the convenient and also purposive. We have the purpose to select those who said they have the bad, so we just go for them, like to interview. So this is a type of the purposive and convenient sampling in non-randomized compared to the quantitative with large sample, and we have the sampling like the random selection. Here's the point that we learn about the definition of the qualitative. We learn about the key principle before we decide whether we take the qualitative or whether we take the quantitative. We have the point that is like we can plan ahead to define about the resource, what we really want to know. But now it's also to the section that we show about the differentiate between quantitative and the qualitative research. So in quantitative study, the researcher tend to follow more rigid structure, of course. It have the protocol. It have a protocol. A lot of questionnaire, a lot of question. It's closed question, closed-ended question. It's very restricted structure. On the other hand, for the qualitative research, is about the sample of the study is very small and it's very flexi, less structure, because we use open-ended question. It's more room like the flexi room. It's very flexi. So that's the key that I want to highlight here, but you can also see in this matrix. The focus of the two of the research, the qualitative and the quantitative, the focus, exploring the idea. For the quantitative, remember the word whys and how, so explore whys. Remember also the key principle of doing the qualitative is about here, like about the experience of someone, about the perception. So we explore about those things. For the qualitative, by then is formulating the hypothesis or theory. So back to the previous slide, also see about building the theory. So the focus of the qualitative research, the focus on the exploratory, and also build the hypothesis and theory. But the quantitative focus is about testing. It's not building the hypothesis, but testing. The qualitative is building the theory. The quantitative is testing the theory or testing the hypothesis. For the analysis, the qualitative like the term that I explained previous slide is non-numerical data. So the analysis is about the summarizing, about the categorizing, and about the interpreting or coding. But for quantitative, the analyzing is about the math, the numerical data, the statistical data. So qualitative is about the wording. Quantitative is about the number. A very simple word. String, I think in using in statistics, they call string is text. In SPSS, the number is about the number and the string. So quantitative is about the number, and the qualitative is about the string or the text. Yes, so expressed in word, and quantitative expressed in number, in percentage, in graphic, in table that we used to present. That remember also the last previous slide is about the benefit of using the quantitative research is easy to communicate, because we generate the table, we generate the graphic to see which are very high or which very low. That is a very advanced from the quantitative for us to communicate the result to the audience. The sample, also to mention it again, sample for qualitative is very few, very narrow, the small sample, but quantitative is a large or a big sample size. The question is open-ended for the qualitative, and the quantitative is closed-ended. Characterizing is understanding, to get understanding, in-depth understanding. Context and complexity of the sensitivity. So the complexity is also helping us to address the question wise. And characterizing by the quantitative research testing again is go to the definition, testing, measurement, and also object that replicate replicability. So that's the definition of the quantitative. So this matrix can help us to differentiate between the quantitative research and the qualitative research and the quantitative research. Just after data collection to provide holistic view of the user experience. So thinking about the method before, again, it's kinds of planning what we are going to do, what we are going to explore, what we are going to explain, and what we want to see. This is all about the planning ahead before the data collection, before the start of the project, and also during and also the after the data collection, because it's well prepared. It's helped us to prepare also the type of the kinds of the preparation, the data collection, and also the data analysis. So it's also well equipped. It's benefit for us as the researcher to be well prepared before we start the project. So again, I talked a few slides ago, a few slides before is about the exploratory sequential. So here's now is the time for us to talk about the type of the mixed method research. So the method research is designed. There's 3 mixed method research design. The first is about the explanatory sequential. Doing first the quantitative, then qualitative. The second is about exploratory sequential. So exploratory sequential, first we do the qualitative, then quantitative. The last one is about convergent parallels. It's like put all the method all together, the two all together, running in the same time. The qualitative and the quantitative. And this one is very common that TPO Cambodia, and I hope that many researchers also prefer to use this mixed method using the convergent parallels. Because we have the quantitative, we have the percentage, we have the number. It can tell us how much, how often, to what extent. It also can tell us why. So using the last one, the convergent parallel, it also gives us a clear picture, a full picture of our research. So I giving, because so far I don't have any experience in doing the explanatory sequential. TPO and myself also most of the time involved in the explanatory sequential and convergent parallels. So the research that that TPO and myself did in terms of the mixed method research using exploratory sequential, we use the research for Basbat that I have presented earlier. The last one, convergent parallel, is example of using like the impact of the victim participation in the 𝐸𝐶𝐶. So we use the quantitative and we use the qualitative. The first one is very rare, and for me, I don't experience in doing this research, but I'm sure type of this, for example, few days ago, the WHO have released a statement through the media that 50 or 40% of the family member who committed suicide have impacted, but it cannot tell us what is the impact of this. We only understand about the percentage. So if we do this type of the research, just like put the percentage, the measure, we don't understand what type of the impact on the family of those who lost their life as a result of suicide. So it's better to do kinds of follow-up within the one project to do the follow-up. What has been the impact on the family? We said it's impacted, but what is it? And why? So this type of the research that we need to do the kinds of follow-up within a one research project. But I can tell you for us, and most of the researcher that I experience work with, a very common using the convergence parallels, the last one. A combination in the same time using the quantitative and the qualitative. Yes. So what is the benefit? So what is the benefit? So the benefit using the method like the green, this one. So the benefit balance methodology, strength and weakness. So it think if we do only the quantitative or we do the qualitative alone, it leaves a blind spot. It does not give us a whole picture. So that's why it's suggested to do the mixed method, that the benefit to fulfill, to understand what is the blind spot, what is missing. So we do both. Doing both is helping us to get the whole picture, to get a rich information, to help us to analyze the data from the quantitative and the qualitative. This is also supporting the data, like whether its percentage is high and wise, whether it's low and wise. So it's always a kind of a supporting, a validation when using the method research. Yes, in the blue one is tell us about get the full picture. So a combination qualitative and quantitative method makes method research deliver both scale. So deliver both scale because quantitative is measurement. Its measurement is about the statistical data. And quantitative, it gives us the like in-depth understanding. So it gives us both. Deliver us a delivery both scale and depth understanding. Measurable pattern alongside with rich context. So we have the number. So we have another text, the information. It support, it gives us a clear picture. It also can inform us how and why it's higher, and how is this. So it's always support. Again, I'm using the word support or validation and verify. So it's very important to have this type of information during the research project. Even we want to scale up, because if we want to prove that we want to scale up or leverage the project. We said, okay, the percentage of people have improved their mental health. What? In which area, which intervention? So we have to understand it to give the justify. That is also give us the whole context, the better picture when we do the mixed method research design. Yes, and inform the next phase research. So sometimes one method can be used to help with planning, refine another. Example, early qualitative research can uncover user mental health model. So uncover meaning is kind of still a blind spot. It could not cover the whole picture, but we do the follow-up research. We do another survey within the same project. So it could help us to explain or get deep understanding about the research objective that we would like to explore. I highlight in bold, like which can then use to write more target survey question to choose meaningful tasks for benchmark study. So I think I'll go back to the research, the smart research. First, we do only the qualitative. It's not have a clear structure yet. At the end, how many items should be keep as the final one? How many cluster should be the subcluster of the BuzzBot? Because we only extract the item based on the interview with the expert, the 53. So these kinds of uncover whether the BuzzBot diagnose, like the diagnose of the BuzzBot should have 53 items or should be less than 53 items. So we need to do another research, the quantitative, to define what are the final, what are the reliability, what are the validity. So we finally only keep the most relevant item, the most relevant item for the BuzzBot. So we do the second round, the third round. The second round, as you see from here, the second round is 196 interviewee. And the final round we do again with the 32 items that we can generate the subdomain or subcluster of the BuzzBot with the sample 390. So we do the quantitative research for 2 rounds. The first round with the sample around 200 and the last one with the sample around 309. So I think here's the tip. The theory and also the practical from my own experience when we do the research. We need firstly like to plan ahead what we really want to look for. So the tip here is plan ahead, like the mixed method research requires thoughtful coordination. We have to think. We also need to find the resource or the coordination, the source of our support, where we can get the information. We have to collect the data. Whom are the respondents for the survey, for the research, whether the quantitative or the qualitative, or if we use the mixed method. We also need to think the sample, the target beneficiary, or we call the respondent in terms of the research is called respondent or interviewee. And we have to think about the timeline. How long do we have to run for the research? Within 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months? It's planning. Since the day that we start, like draft the concept note, like the term of reference for our research, to list down the objective that we want to have, and when to design the questionnaire. And the questionnaire is, of course, need to be translated and back translated. Back translation is very important, especially if we using the scale from the Western, from other country. In Cambodia, in terms of depression, anxiety, and stress, we don't have our own scale. We don't have our own scale. So we have to review it. We translate it from English to Khmer, make translation from Khmer to English. And some language is like to simplify the statement. And some item is just not applicable. For example, asking about the sexual interest, the loss of sexual interest. So it's also very sensitive. So some item is very sensitive. And this is also thinking about translation and back translation, and also the challenge for asking. So this also a tip for us to consider when we using the scale from other country. So using the scale from other country, make sure we do the translation and back translation. And the language of using is very, need to be like a simplified, a very simple language, a simple statement. To be aware, when we do the interview with the local people, the community, their level of literacy is very low compared to the student from the university or higher education. So when you design the research objective, if your target is local people, need to ensure that the question is very simple, a very soft language, and contextualize because we work with the ground people, we work with the local people. Even the way that we interview is also need to be like well trained to the data collector. That's a tip for us to consider when we do the mixed method research. And again, for the helping us to answer whether we go through, we select the mixed method. So we have to ask ourselves first, the key principle that I have shared, what we really want to see, whether we want to test the relationship, whether we want to test the hypothesis, whether we want to answer why, or whether we want to see how much. So list down all this is also can inform you what type of the research method that we can go for our own research project. So list down all the things. And sharing from my own experience, when running the research project, we have our own hypothesis or the research objective. But beyond that, we also need to be prepared. What type of data we really want to look for? Just list down. What type of a measurement that we want to see or we want to present in the research report? What types of the correlation, what type of the contributing factor that we want to explore? So listing all the things and make sure that when we design the questionnaire, we integrate all those variables, all those questions into the questionnaire. So that's just my own tip for sharing when we do the research. We have to list down all the things. And planning, we have to like a proper plan, like develop the research objective and then the timeline for us. When are we supposed to finish for the research, the questionnaire design? And when to start the data collection? Maybe we do, before we start the official data collection, we need to do kinds of the pilot. Because when we design the questionnaire, it's always back and forth to adjust. To adjust when we testing, when we do a pilot interview. So we have to adjust the statement, adjust the way that we ask to the survivor, or whether the question that we put is too sensitive, or whether is the question, it does not make sense to ask this question, or maybe it's overlap with other a part of the questionnaire. So need to be ensured that we do the pilot before we kick off the official data collection. But before we do the pilot, also need to train during the training. During the training to data collector, more practical training and invite the data collector to practice, to train, to interview, role play during the training. So it's also to ensure that we can see how is the process, what need to adjust, or whether this question it does not make sense, or how many times that our data collector need to repeat the question. So it can give us an idea, the insights of the content of the research question. So I think this is very important. And during the data collection, also, I think it's very important not just to collect the data, ensure the quality of the data, but also ensure the well-being of the data collector. Because asking about the mental health, the experience, the worstful, the suffering, the painful, especially the research on the mental health is really suffer. It's really traumatized for the data collector. So need to be like well kinds of provide the clinical support or sharing session. Let data collector to express about their challenge, about their experience in asking the respondent. Because otherwise it's another burden for the data collector. It needs the time to process their trauma, their witnesses. They don't experience through the traumatic event together with the trauma survivor, but then they hearing the story of the survivor. They hearing the story of the respondent. Yeah, so this is also a point that usually the research they put in the ethic. So in how to ensure do not harmful even to the survivor, even to the respondent, but also to the data collector. And the tip to, I think I also mentioned about the integration of the data, how we will use the result, how the results of the quantitative use, and how the result of the qualitative use to support the quantitative. That need to be clear. That need to be clear when we design the research. Because otherwise we just like collect the information and just put or store it without using those information. It takes time, and also it's not ethic or like it's not ethical to collect the data, but does not interpret or do with the data that we has collected. And I know that in we don't talk much during like when we study in the university about the data protection. The data protection is very important. How to store it, how to keep it confidentiality, who are the key person who are able to access the data, when to destroy the data, especially the record, the transcription. We just not can keep it for many years. That should also put in the protocol. With the research, with the international the research project, we have this type of the protocol, but it's also, I would suggest to all the young researcher, also consider about the, not consider, but must also, must for the data protection, because that the sensitive data for the respondent. We don't care much about it. I think in our culture, in our context especially, it's okay. It's okay to collect to get those information, but ensure the data store is proper protected, and also consent form need to highlight how we store the data, how we destroy it, and also in for the consent form. I think this session we don't talk about the consent form, but just also sharing in the consent form. Usually we said we do the verbal consent, but it's not just like list down thing that we put in the written consent form. The respondent need to know what is discomfort during the interview, about the right to stop the interview, withdraw their participation if something disturbed or they don't want to, they don't continue to give the answer. We cannot force them. So it's just not, I think we need to be like well prepared, and also for the young researcher also thinking about this is very important. the ethic, working with the respondent, and how to have like how to prevent like a harmful for the survivor or even for the data collector. We never know about the breaching the data of the respondent, because some people they just like bring the questionnaire, go to their home, or they don't bring the questionnaire back to the office before they go home. Or maybe they drop along the way, because in Cambodian context, we write the motto for the interview. Or maybe we miss piece of the questionnaire, some piece of the questionnaire, and the questionnaire usually they put the name of the respondent, the name, the village, the phone number. But in practice, what TPO is doing, we using the code. We're matching the code. The questionnaire does not have the name of the respondent. We have only the 5-digit, we give the code. But the consent form has the name of the respondent and the code. So if something happen, we already have the kinds of prevention measure to mitigate those risks. So it's also a point to consider that it's not mentioned in the mixed method, but it's also the ethic for the researcher when we do the research project. Yes, this is also been mentioned about the tip to do, like to have the clear objective, to understand the rationale, why we want to do the research, why we interest in particular objective. We need to have a clear rationale. So it's when we have a clear rationale, it can help us to have a proper design, and also select a best fit the research method, and also let us have a clear picture, like how many questions that we should have, how long it would take. So this is also important to have a clear objective and the rationale. And again, for a very common, the mixed method that we apply, that we experience to use is about the quantitative or the convergent, parallel and exploratory sequential that we so far we use for our research project. Yeah. But in the description, most of the research project, they don't explain about the convergent parallel or whether exploratory sequential. They just put the word mixed method research. We use the mixed method that qualitative and quantitative. Not mention about the type of the mixed method research. So here I'm sharing from the research study that we so far has conducted within TPO. We use convergent parallel as a type, one of the type of the mixed method research to do the randomized control trial. 5 years ago, I think not 5, but years ago, we do the randomized control trial because TPO have one of the intervention called testimonial therapy. I think you already, when you walk like come to this room, you can see kinds of photo gallery that mention about សក្ខីកម្ម the treatment ការព្យាបាលតាមបែបសក្ខីកម្ម or testimonial therapy. So we do the randomized control trial with those who receive the intervention from TPO. The intervention that I'm talking about is testimonial therapy. It's the healing process that we narrate or document the story of the survivor. So we have the control group and the experiment group. We want to see whether those groups who provide with particular intervention on the intervention that we provide to the survivor, to the third party, the 𝐀𝐻 survivor, we provide testimonial therapy treatment. We provide the treatment, the intervention called testimonial therapy. We want to see those groups, those who receive the intervention from TPO, have a better improvement than the other control group, the waiting list. The waiting list. So we do the randomized control trial. So this one of the research that we use the convergent parallel, but it's also require two groups. We select the sample size in the same time. One group receive the treatment, one group in the waiting list. So when we do the assessment, we do for both groups, for control group and the experiment group. But the control group and the waiting list group does not get any intervention from us. Only when we complete the research, then this group receive the intervention. So we do this type of the randomized control trial among the control and the experiment group. This article has been published and I have shared to Unlock so everyone could access to the article. So the title of the article is about the culturally adapted trauma treatment. Testimonial therapy is type of the trauma treatment for the survivor of the Khmer Rouge genocide in Cambodia. So we ran for the randomized control trial for the effectiveness of the testimonial therapy. So for this research, we want to see whether the experiment group who received testimonial therapy have reduced the symptom like the trauma symptom, particular PTSD. We use the PTSD scale in that time. So we test whether the experiment group who received the trauma treatment or testimonial therapy have reduced the symptom of PTSD. So we see how many percentage of them has improved their psychological, improved the symptom of PTSD, the percentage. And we also want to understand to what extent does testimonial therapy is effective in dealing their suffering or pain, and why. So we asking also why, because it's want to understand why they pursue that the trauma survivor, the Khmer survivor who received testimonial therapy said that this type of intervention helping them to improve their well-being. Why they pursue that? Which element of the treatment, which part of the treatment that the most effective in healing their pain, in healing their suffering. And we also asking the question is kinds of open-ended question. How meaningful was the testimonial therapy for you? And to what extent did testimonial therapy contribute to reduce your suffering? So we allow them to share. Just like they give like a room, a flexi room to let us understand what is meaningful for them after participated in particular intervention that called testimonial therapy. Yeah. Because testimonial therapy is not only the process of document the story of the Khmer survivor, the suffering, but we also integrate with the culturally adapted. We have kinds of a ritual ceremony for blessing to the survivor who lost their family during the Khmer time without proper ceremony. So this type of the combination of our culture into the treatment process. So this type of the research that we ran, and we did the randomized control trial. And the article again has been shared. So this one of the attached article. And this article, I'm the co-author because someone who writes, and we have like a partner from the CVT. So CVT is Center for Torture Victims based in US. So she's the first author and I'm the second author for this article. So this one of the mixed method that TPO use. The software for running the mixed method. So usually we run with the big sample size. We use SPSS. Some of you use Excel, or some might use the Access. And for me, I'm familiar with SPSS, so I use SPSS. With the sample size and kinds of a complicated analysis, so I prefer to use this one. It's more advantage. And for the coding, the qualitative, now there's also some software like 𝐸𝐵𝐵 and 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿. So this 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿. So this you extract the text, the script, and it's loading here. So you have to code or give the segment line by line. Traditionally, we use kinds of coding. We just go through the text and we code by ourselves and by expert. But here there's also the 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿 software for the qualitative. There's a type of the software that we use for the mixed method. For the quantitative, we also use the SPSS, and the qualitative use the 𝐀𝐛𝐨𝐿. I think this is also mentioned that the qualitative is traditional coding, but when we come to the quantitative, we use the SPSS, and also the under the SPSS also have a function to run for the exploratory factor analysis to see the group. Also to see about the kinds of a structure of grouping through the factor analysis. And in SPSS, it also allow us to see about the correlation, the association, and also the validity and the confidence interval. So this type of the software that we are using for the research so far within TPO. Challenge, I think that's the practical challenge in doing the research. I also already share some of the challenge when we previous slide, but in practical challenge in Cambodia. I think for us in Cambodia, the research topic is very new. And we are not trained how to write the article. We are not trained how to write the article. Accessing to the article is very limited for us. Only we pay, only we go to the international institution. So that's one of the challenge for us as the young researcher. If we do even the thesis at the bachelor degree, we hardly to access for the free journal, free article. So that is a challenge. It's very limitation, because when we do the research, we have to have like a rationale. What has been done so far? That's our research is duplicated or repeated. So if we face a challenge to access to the free journal, or it cannot tell us what are the topic has been done, what are the research has been conducted, and where. What else should we explore? So this part of the literature review for us missing in this context. And also when we develop the questionnaire, again, we depend on the Western scale. We don't have the own version, only we develop like customized based on the research objective that we have. But whether we see the question that we put in, whether it's kinds of have a validity or reliability item, we don't have it. We don't have this type of idea, because it's a new item that we just put in. Some of the item that we put into the questionnaire, it does not applicable, or it cannot tell us what we really want to looking for. So this is also one of the challenge. But if we already use the Western, we do the translation by translation. When we do the interview, it takes time. So as I mentioned earlier, in the protocol, we said the interview would be last long, like 45 minutes. But it's sometimes the interview just like 1.5 hours or 2 hours. Asking about the psychological distress. The survivor just like forget, like it's not forget, but it's maybe the first time for her to share about the experience. So she prefer to talk or kind of narrate her story rather than just like focus to the question that the data collector asked. Or maybe the question that we ask, we have to repeat it 3 times. But we cannot explain to them. Otherwise, it's kind of bias. Because if we explain, I explain A, the same question, you explain B, the same question, that's another bias. Yeah. So I think it's really rigid structure is very strict. So if we just like asking for 3 times and the respondent does not get the point, then we skip. Some of our experience, the data collector just decide on behalf of respondent. So be careful on this. We want to get the answer from the respondent, not the answer, the judgment from us and the data collector. Yes. If they don't understand, just skip or make note that they don't understand. Or the question is a challenge, the language is challenge. So we can consolidate those kinds of information as the limitation of the research study. And again, the Likert scale, the rating, because for example, we asking to what extent, like in the last 12 weeks, in the last 2 weeks, to what extent to have like a kinds of a sleeping problem. She said 2 or 3 times. But the Likert scale, would you say like not at all disturbed, or little disturbed, moderate disturbed, or extremely disturbed? So when we using the Likert scale, she cannot switch from the frequency to the extension of the disturbance. So sometimes we use the pictorial, the picture, to explain the survivor about the rating scale. This is also very common when we ask the survivor. They can give us the frequency like 2 or 3 days per week. But when we asking, because the instruction of the question, to what extent does the item, does the symptom bother you in the last 2 weeks? Would you say not at all, little disturbed, moderate disturbed, like extremely disturbed? So when we using this scale, so it's challenge for the survivor to answer. So this is the practical for us, and in the research, especially in the research of the mental health, it's kinds of distress arise or discomfort. So the survivor may cry, or kinds of, we experience survivor have kinds of panic attack because of this, the question is sensitive. And there's also need to have a process to support after the interview. Yeah. Usually we put the contact number in the consent form to ensure that there is a channel to support the respondent after the interview. We just like finish the interview and we say goodbye without like kinds of follow-up. That is also the practical that we use with the survivor, especially asking about the mental health of the respondent. The other difficult in the data integration is merging, because we have two different separate data set, one in SPSS and one in the Excel or in the 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐻. So how to consolidate it, that's one of the challenge. So usually we run the quantitative using the SPSS. And when we see the result, then we go through the qualitative part, that we have to find out what does it mean with the percentage, with the data that we receive from the quantitative. Then we have to go through the qualitative data set. We have to merge and have to consolidate these two data. That's the challenge and also time consuming. It really takes time to process with the data analysis for both quantitative and the qualitative. Yes, and again, it's coding sim with traditional is really take time and involve many experts in coding the sim. Now we have the software, but still need to confirm when we have the software. At least get the insight from the expert to see about the coding from the 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐻. So I think now comes to the end, and is the session for question and answer. So please welcome, and I'm sure that this session is, for me, is quite short, with a very key topic, especially in the research, and my experience 17 years in doing the research and just put into the 3 hours. That is not comprehensive, but I'm sure that this platform is a learning and sharing platform. I will learn from you. I will learn also from the participants around the world, and also those who join in Zoom. So it's a sharing and learning process. It's not about the lecture. So welcome for question. Thank you.
Hello, Bong, and everyone. My question is, what is the difference between explanatory and exploratory sequentials? Yes, just one question.
The next question, please. So I will have two, and then I answer the question.
Thank you for the insightful presentation. I want to know more about coding. So I think preferably we have two coders on the same data set, but what if we only have one coder? Should we code it twice, and in the case that we have two coders and there are two different answers, or there's a disagreement, how do we come to the conclusion? And can you share the software that you said would help automate the coding process?
So the first question is asking about the differentiate between the explanatory and also explanatory. So explanatory first, the process, remember the word mixed method research is combination, is a combination between qualitative and quantitative into a single project. But the sequential, like for explanatory, first, the quantitative research. After the quantitative research, then is followed by the qualitative research. That's explanatory sequential. The exploratory sequential come first with the qualitative. Explore is come first with the qualitative, and followed by the quantitative after research of batch. So that is the process. To the second question, whether I can share the software. This is licensed software. I'm sorry to, so I think for this software we have to buy and we have to pay with the license, they make the QA. And from my experience with coding, the recent study from last year, the coding like traditional one, we have like even the single coder, we have to share with the other. Even we don't have the resource, but maybe seeking someone who are working in the same area and check whether we are cluster those response. Like how do they think with the coding, or maybe they think that maybe should code in this and that. So we have kinds of a combined idea from different perspective and different viewer. Our experience is also we don't have the resource, so we also ask our psychologists who also work on the same project to review and to code, and we compare. So this is also the way that we do for the coding or grouping. Yes. For the process of BASBAT, the researcher do the coding, but then the researcher present it to the local expert to verify whether we should call this or that. Maybe this should cluster into this. So we check like a verify from the local expert that we also interview. Yes. So I think this need to go back to the research objective that you want to test. If you want to explore first, like our own, like the BASBAT, we explore first what are the symptoms. So we explore first, we do the exploratory sequential. But if we want, like, if we decide first to do the quantitative, because you said, we said we want to test, we have the big sample size, but we don't have enough information, cannot tell us the bigger picture, whys and hows. So then we do the follow up, like the next study on the qualitative, but with a very sample, a small sample.
You can also address the question.
So can you confirm if the results of the survey form to respondent? Can you confirm if the result of the survey form to the respondent are quantitative nature if considered as a test instrument? So I think from our own experience, when we design the survey form, we already make the decision which approach, which method, and what type of the structure, the like how we construct the questionnaire. So if we decide to construct the questionnaire in the quantitative form, we need to ensure the question in the way of the question structure in the form of clause and interview. Yes and no, a rating scale, or how often or how frequency. That we need to ensure the structure of the questionnaire. And it's considered, yes, because when we develop, we know the definition of the quantitative, and when we develop, we know the nature of the structure. And of course, when we test, the testing instrument is also could tell us whether, just like usually the testing, the pilot just tell us how to reframe the statement, reframe the statement to make it simple for the respondent to answer or to understand about the statement. But the nature of the structure of the quantitative survey or quantitative research using the close-ended question. Yes. Which one? It's this one. That the questionnaire from survey require the base to be tested. How can we calibrate if the question should be included to the form? Does the question need to be result? Does the question need to be result of the peer review source? Usually, the TPO, we do the research with the international institute, so we need to submit to the ethical committee to review also the whole process. So I think everywhere, even with the thesis of the student who undergraduate, also submit to the committee, the school committee. In Cambodia, we also need to submit to the National Ethics Committee to review. Also they have the form to fill in the research process and also harmful or the kinds of discomfort. They have to declare all those information that has we need to fill in the template of the national ethic review, and with the international one we have to follow the template. And that's every question need to be testing. If I suggest if the news questionnaire, if the news measurement, I would suggest to do the pilot. For example, if TPO already run several research topics on the depression anxiety, the scale does not need to pilot. But the new item need to pilot because we need to ensure the statement that's like easy to understand, or whether we need to revise it or make it in a simple word that local people can understand. Okay, please.
Hi, so you mentioned some of the gaps in terms of research in Cambodia, one of them access to information, the other being general writing skills, I guess. I was wondering if you had any other areas in which you would focus on in order to develop research in Cambodia.
Thank you for your question, and it's very tough question that I think the general challenge even for myself, that I've been working for TPO for 17 years in research coordination, in designing, but still it's not capable in writing the article. So we also, in terms of wording, in terms of language, because you know the article is very limited in wording. So how to put like the sentence within like a very limited number, or this is one of the challenge we face. The language is also the issue, and the structure, the article, the requirement, the source of reference. The scientific journal, we all aware is about the reference. We just cannot talk, we just cannot say anything. So that is very limited for us. The student cannot afford to pay it. If we go to the international university, then we already pay, or we access to library. For example, if we study at Royal University, so we have only the like kinds of the book, not e-book. Where is the source for us to access to the update the article. So I think it's a lot of challenge, the area for improvement. The focus of the research, I think the focus of the research, we need to build the foundation of doing the research. To get students understand since they are at the university, not just only those who are interested in doing the thesis, but at least not just only like 1/4 the research course. If they don't understand about the research, then it's still lack of the human resource, lack of the foundation of doing the research. We choose like the outstanding researcher in Cambodia. We need a lot of researcher in Cambodia. A lot of area need to research on, to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you for an insightful session. So I have a question regarding to your challenge. You mentioned that if we explain the research questions to our respondent, you said it could be biased, right? So my question is that how so? Why is it biased? And is there a way that we can deal with it? And is there a way for us to explain the research questions to our respondent without being biased? Because in an organization that I used to work for, we work with the people in the remote area, and most of them are the minority groups. So there could be some questions that it's hard for them to understand. At the same time, we cannot contextualize it because it would make the question lose its meaning and what we strive for the data. Thank you.
I think that everyone faces the challenge when we do the interview. A lot of requests from the respondent for us to explain. So one of the tips that we need to design a very particular research objective and the questionnaire, the question that we need to structure in a very simple way. So we also, the content, the insights of the item, the question need also to well trained to the data collector. From my own experience, we explain, the more we explain, sometimes the more they get confused. Or maybe I explain, but the way that you perceive is different from what I explain. And working with ethnic minority or indigenous group, I can understand is completely different. And the culture is like the context is different. So I would suggest, for me, I would suggest first to do kinds of explore, like kinds of a focus group discussion or the key informant interview to get their own language or how they use the word. So we can using the word and put into the questionnaire, just like simplify the word and with their local context. Otherwise, I think it's challenge because work even for our project, working with indigenous group, we need also to understand about their culture, whether it's a sub or not, using the term of mental health. So we have to go there to learn what they call if someone have a mental health problem. So we have to learn about their local language first. That's one of my suggestions to minimize the kinds of explanation. We try not to explain so much in the process of data collection. Yes. Please, Bo.
Okay, I want to clarify about the variable of a Likert scale. Normally, the Likert scale is the two measurable on the perspective or agreement or the feeling or something like that. So, for example, if a question asking that how do you feel when the boy and girl is equality to get the education, and the girl can live from home to study away from home like the boy. Do you agree? The category there are 5 or 4. I want to know how many category. It means strongly agree, agree, moderate, not agree, or strongly not agree, and other something like that. Okay, thank you.
This is kinds of categorize the answer like strongly or strongly agree, strongly disagree, disagree, and agree. So from our own experience, if we put the neutral, agree, nor disagree, the respondent is also tendency to choose to select the neutral one. So my suggestion, from my own experience, we always remove the neutral one. We just put like strongly disagree, disagree, agree, and strongly agree. So they can decide with this. That's what my suggestion, and also from the experience that we using this type of the scale. If we ask a statement like you propose, the question that you propose, so we remove the middle, the neutral one, agree, nor disagree. Yes. And the Likert scale, like 0 to 5 is kind of if we have a line from 0 to 10, so it's kind of a rating. The extent is not about the categorizing or grouping, disagree or agree. That is the Likert is asking about the severity, not at all, or strongly. How can I say? A rating from 1 to 5, but it's kind of the extent. Like if I said little, I choose little, not at all, or little, or moderate, or extremely, or strongly. So that's kinds of the rating scale. We rate the item, we rate the question. Not we categorize whether the question is disagree or strongly disagree. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, sister, and good morning, everyone. Yes, my question is, yeah. Sometimes like researchers themselves also face some like problem. For example, like time allocation, resource allocation. So choosing the method aligned with this problem is affect much to their research or not from your experience? Can you brief a bit more? Yes.
So
I mean the effect to their what they have. Yes.
okay. So your question is asking whether the resource have kinds of impact on the result. I think that's why we giving a tip for us to planning ahead. What is the research objective that we want to explore within the resource that we have? How many questions that we should add? Whether we have enough time, like 45 minutes, or whether we have just 20 minutes. Then we have to structure our questionnaire. If we have a very resource, whether we can decide to take the qualitative research. So I think these kinds of impact, that's why we have to consider, like plan ahead, what the resource that we have, the time, the human resource, the time, the budget, and the feasibility, how accessible for us to the respondent. Whether I think some of the sensitive is really challenge to access to the respondent. Yes, thank you.
So we have 2 more questions physically here, and we have 1 question on the screen. And online participant, if you have further question, please drop it in the Q&A session. It is mostly introduction. So after the physical question here with in-person participant, we will go to the online participant.
Yes. Hello, Bong. So I heard you've been doing research for almost 13 years, right? 17 years. And so right now there's a tool, AI, that could help facilitate with the time management and with the codings and stuff. So have you tried using AI before and helping you doing your research in the past or for future? And what are your thoughts on using AI for this kind of both qualitative and quantitative research?
I will take one more question. Sorry.
For my question regarding to the design questionnaire, for method between quantitative and qualitative is quite difficult for researcher to conduct research. It spends more time, and I would like to ask, how can we define the questionnaire to respond all the research questions that we are designing? Because as you know that the MIC method we require to spend in-depth interview because we want to know about the human experience, perception. But if you interview with the respondent, they have a less of time, just half an hour or 20 minutes. But they got to our questionnaire, it's too long. So I am facing challenge to design questionnaire to respond all my research questions. So can you give a tip to me for design effective questionnaire to respond all these questions? And another question regarding similar to sister asking questions. In qualitative research, we have to transcribe all the data from respondent, but it takes more time. So it would be available if we can use AI to transcribe all the information from respondent. Is it effective? Then our human listen and type ourselves. So please respond.
Thank you for your question. And frankly, I never try AI. I never try AI for coding or running the data analysis. Asking whether I trust AI or not, because I'm familiar using the SPSS, the data can present, so I read the result. I can read the result because we learning SPSS like mathematics, the alpha, the thing, the stuff. So we trust the kinds of the mathematics generate from the SPSS. That's one of my aspect. But for qualitative, I never try it. Again, I never try it, but one day I will explore whether it's like using the software and to test with AI, whether it's kinds of aligned or very similar to one we use. So, but so far I never try it. But thank you for asking this question. It's also like allow me to explore or using this AI if that is workable. That's one of the my answer to you. And the second question is how to design the questionnaire. I think you have to list what you want to see. What is your research topic about? What is your hypothesis first? Then what is the sub objective, let's say, that you want to see? You have to be smart with the objective. That something that is, again, is smart is about thing that you can measure. So when you have a very smart objective, the sub objective of your hypothesis, then it can help you to plan the question. For example, if I said, I want to see the reduction of the improvement of the mental health of the third party who participate in the 𝐸𝐶𝐶. So it can help me to frame, to select those who only participate in the 𝐸𝐶𝐶. And the mental health, I will focus on the mental health, but I need to be specific. What is mental health that I'm looking for? Whether I'm asking about, want to see the reduction of PTSD or BASBAT, or I want to see the reduction of anxiety or the depression. I have to be clear to define the definition of mental health that I want to explore. I cannot just put every checklist of the mental health into the questionnaire. So need to be clear, what is mental health that you are looking for? Whether depression, whether stress, whether anxiety. So if you have a very clear, then the measurement, you have to put like, if I want to see the depression, I only put the scale of depression. So this is one of the tips that helping me to design and minimize the number of the questionnaire. And you have to, again, you have to list down the sub-objective and just put to brainstorm first what you want to see and whether the result is relevant. When you review it, you can review several times, so you can somehow remove those is unnecessary or not relevant to your hypothesis. So this the tip that I could share based on my experience. Yes.
Thank you. I believe we are about to running out of time, so I will take 2 more questions from the online participant randomly, so that we can address it and end the session. If you have further questions, I believe you can reach out to Ms. Tang Supiep. So you have her email address at the end of the slide presentation. Okay, this one's one, Bora. Thank you for this insightful workshop. May I ask if you are aware of any work on life experience of mental health among Cambodian population or anyone using MEC method? Maybe you can email her later, I think. If you use MEC method, the result may differ how you experience it. If so, how should we draw conclusion and recommendation? Which finding of which measured quant or qual should be more trusted? Do you get the question, Bo? From Meng Hood Cho.
So usually from my own experience, we use mixed method. So a combination, it's not a separate approach. We use a combination between quantitative and qualitative. So the result is support each other. For example, when we run the quantitative data analysis. So for example, we see 80% of the Khmer survivor expressed that they satisfied with the process of the Khmer tribunal. So the qualitative part, I just like extract why the respondents said they are satisfied with the Khmer tribunal. So I go into the coding. So it gives me the reason, okay. So 80% of the Khmer survivor reported that they satisfied with the process of the Khmer tribunal for this reason. So it's support. It's not a different. It's not putting things different. So suggestion to integrate the data, merging the data, not a separate data present the result. It's not a separation, but integrate. So remember, mixed method, integrate, because it gives us a full picture of our research objective. So I suggest not to separate, and the data that you get from the qualitative, try to see, because when we design, we already have a clear picture. When we use the quantitative, like the close end question, and then we follow up, please explain. So with those please explain, it gives us support information to the like a quantified data.
Okay. We have one more question about using the photo. Any case from your experience that you can use a real photo or name of the participant after they give you consent to do so?
So far, I'm not sure whether you ask a question whether we use the photo as a type of the data or whether we use the photo of the respondent during the interview. That's a question, but I can share from the experience like photo voice. It's a process of reading the photo of the of the survivor who take the photo and they narrate the story of the photo. So it's also a part of the qualitative research. But the question, if you're asking whether we are using the photo of the interview, we need to ask the permission or get consent from the respondent if we want to use them, even the record.
Okay, I think we are running out of time. Like seriously, thank you so much everyone for participating in our workshop. Please give a hand of applause to our speaker. And thank you so much, dear participant online. We will close the workshop right now. If you have any question, please reach out to us or to Ms. Tang Sophia. She will try to get back to you accordingly. And